Day 3 of 2014 football camp. First day in the pads. We're with offensive coordinator Willie Simmons. Coach, first day in pads offensively, how did they look?
Well, first day is always a tough day. You know, you do 2 days in shorts, which we have to do. Everyone in the country has to do that. But it's that transition day. You know, it's the first day that you're going to really be banging. So it's the first day that fatigue takes a whole new level. It's easy to run around in shorts and helmets all day long when you're not banging and leaning on people and forcing yourself upon other people. But when you put those pads on, it takes on a different element. But for the most part, you know, we're impressed with what we see. You know, of course, we have a lot of work to do, but again, it's the third day. We don't play a game for another few weeks. So, you know, encouraging things, everything that we need to get better at is correctable things that we know we can get better at and will.
With this third day of camp, first day in full pads, what has impressed you the most?
The retention. You know, one thing when you return a lot of guys, the main thing you want to see is do the remember plays from last year. There's not a lot of changes on either side of the ball. So that's a positive. You know, a lot of guys can come in, and now we as coaches can focus more on the little details. I mean, it's not so much as teaching guys where to go and which way to go. Now it's teaching them the proper way to go, the steps, the alignments, now understanding the other side of the ball as well, what the defense is trying to do to you if you're an offensive player, and what the offensive team is trying to do to you if you're a defensive player. So, you know, there's a lot of retention, and now we can just, like I said, focus more on the little details.
You know, all starts with John Gibbs, the quarterback. I've heard he has a good summer, quarterback camp and all that. At this point, with you and him being together, is it about coaching now or is it about teaching?
Both. It's still about teaching. You know, part of being a coach is teaching, and our job never stops in that aspect. Teaching him our offensive scheme, he knows it, like I just said. But again, it's taking this game to another level. And everybody that's been a multi-year quarterback, you know, what you want to see is that increment, that vast improvement from year to year. I think his first year he completed about 47% of his passes. Last year it's close to 57. So another 10% jump in completion percentage would be pretty good, you know. But again, just being a leader, you know, it's always something you want to see out of your quarterbacks. You know, be the leader of this unit. And when the guys are tired or when they're down or when they need to be fired up, you know, they can turn and look to you and know that you have everything in control. And that, again, playing a position myself, having Coach Mack who played a position as well, and we're two guys that know the importance of that quarterback being the leader of the offense.
Looking at his body, looks like he's really bulked up, and talk about that aspect as well as the fact that recently went to a quarterback camp to improve probably the mental aspect.
Right. Well, of course, gaining weight helps when you play the position in any position in football. You know, the more bulk you have, the more durable you are. You know, so again, playing that position. Last year didn't take a lot of hits in the passing game, which hopefully we can continue that. But he does run the ball some. Again, had almost 500 yards rushing last year. So with him carrying the football as much as he does in this offense, bulking up a little bit in the offseason does help. And as far as him going down to see George Whitfield, I mean, he's one of the best in the business. You know, again, he's trained everyone from Johnny Manziel to Andrew Luck to you name it. And so for him to go down there and get that exposure, I think only makes him better. You know, now he gets to compare himself with other guys in the country, and then again learn the game from another perspective. So a lot of the things we teach him when you're hearing it from a guru, then it makes our job a lot easier too. Because now you kind of get instant credibility when you're hearing something from a guy that supposedly is the best in the business doing it.
The talk of this Braves offense in 2014, no Arnold Walker, running game by committee, someone stepping up. Talk about the backfield, and is it going to be backfield by committee, or do you think someone, maybe A-Train or Robert Clay or Ragsdale, maybe could step up?
Well, it's starting out, everyone's getting reps. I mean, this camp, so of course everyone's fighting for a position. And this time last year, I mean, everyone was fighting for a position as well. And Arnold just, as the season progressed, started to separate himself from the pack, and that's when he started to get a bulk of the carries. In the beginning of the season, he started about 15 carries a game. At the end, he was about 25 to 30, but that was because of him.
Yeah.
And so now all those guys know that the best guys are going to play. If there are three best guys, then the three best guys will play. If it's one, it's one. If it's five, it's five. So it's our job to get the best players on the field at each position, not just running back. So however many guys prove out here on a daily basis that they deserve to play, we're going to play them.
The natural progression would be the A-Train. Talk about his development from when you first saw him to now, knowing that he's probably even though it's a running back by committee, I'm sure a lot is expected of him because he did get a lot of carries.
Well, he's a senior, and again, I had a long talk with him in the offseason, just like I had a long talk with Arnold going into his senior season, and it's just something about that last year that just kind of turns that light on, where you just go a little bit harder, You strain a little bit tougher. You try to be a little bit more of a leader. So that's something that we're seeing from Anthony. He's not a very outspoken guy, but he is trying to lead by example, and he is being vocal when need be. He's taking the young guys and going over protections with them and things like that. So you're starting to see him take a lot more of a leadership role, which is impressive. He's already been doing good things physically, but now seeing him take his game to another level as far as a mental standpoint and a leadership standpoint is probably the biggest thing jumping out right now.
Offensive line, have a new offensive line coach. Talk a little bit about that and talk about the line.
Well, again, veteran group. I mean, we didn't lose anybody off that team, and off last year's team. So, again, with that being said, there's a lot of high expectations for that group. Got a new offensive line coach, Coach Stanchek, and very pleased with him. Again, same pedigree as Coach Losey last year. Played, basically worked under the same guy, has the same type of knowledge of the game. And so, again, we don't think we lost a whole lot. Coach Losey did a phenomenal job with those guys. But we feel like we have a guy that, that can come in and get them going and take them to another level. But, again, whenever you have all your starters back, the guys that played every snap last year, again, now it's a matter of taking your game to another level. I mean, assignment-wise, finishing blocks, just being a dominant unit because, again, that's what they're going to be perceived as, the strength of this offense. So be a dominant unit day in and day out, play in, play out, game in and game out.
Who's the one guy on that offensive line that really has stood out so far early in camp?
Well, one guy, D'Antonio Dade. D'Antonio's a guy that started every game for us as a true freshman, which is tough to do at that position, at left tackle, and just his work ethic. I mean, he's out there running sprints. He's the fastest one there. I mean, he's the one that's trying to do everything that you coached him to do. I mean, he's just one of those type guys that he has that something in him that we didn't put in him. He came in with it, and now I think he's trying to lead more. He's the youngest guy up front, of that starting five. But he's trying to be a leader, which is encouraging. But he's a guy that's done a great job. Jonathan Scott, same thing, a leader. Skelly Ungazi, so there are a lot of guys in that group who have leadership ability because of their reps. I mean, they're the most experienced group on this team. And but now they're finally starting to show that. But we're challenging them. We're challenging them probably more so than any other position because we're going to go as they go.
Speaking of a lot of guys, once again, a lot of wide receivers. I think last year we had 14 at one point in camp. How many do we have this year?
About 19.
19.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Well, as much as we run, we're fast-paced, spread, no huddle. So you got to have a lot of bodies. Again, it's good for those younger guys to get a lot of reps. But again, you want to try to make sure you're not running the guys, not running them too much because they got to be in shape. But you don't want to run them into the dirt either. So again, you got to have a lot of bodies at that receiver position. But again, healthy competition. Again, we're about 3 deep at each position. And so, again, every day those guys have to understand that the best guys will play. So every day we may be switching the lineup around, trying to get our best combination of 8 guys on the field. Again, we try to make sure 8 guys are ready to play on Saturday. So now it's a matter of those 18 guys vying for those 8 spots. So, again, competition makes us all better. And that's a positive thing that we have for us in that receiver group.
The great story on the wide receiver position and probably the great story of the whole team is Diego Salma's return after getting injured about this time last year on a special teams fluke. Talk about how he's been able to come back.
His recovery last year was kind of miraculous. I mean, one day he was on crutches hobbling around, having to get transported everywhere, and the next day he's out here on the field by himself running full speed routes. So it kind of came out of nowhere as far as his health. But he's a kid that has a lot of ability, ton of ability. A lot of the flashy things that we saw on this, from his high school film, he's shown in his limited time here. But again, Diego's a guy who's trying to feel his way through, trying to find his niche in this offense as a slot receiver. Again, he's a dynamic guy with the ball in his hands, but you have to be more than that as just a receiver. You have to be able to block. You have to be able to stretch the field. You have to be able to make plays in the passing game. So right now it's just a matter of him as he's still a freshman, because technically he is a freshman, didn't play it all last year. So he's still learning a lot. There's a lot to learn in this offense. So, but he's coming along well, and he's a guy that we're going to try to push, and hopefully we can get a lot out of it this year.
Talk about the expectation from your veteran receivers. Of course, last year you had a couple of former quarterbacks transform over to the receiver slot, and then you have another guy, Casey Freeman, who's also was on the defensive side, transferring over to the offensive side. Mm-hmm. Talk a little about that. Well,
the older guys, Jordan Payne, LaDarian Davis, Tillette George, he's out right now, but hopefully get him back pretty soon. Jarvis Turner, all those guys. Again, Brandon Vessel, played a lot of snaps for us last year. And again, like you talked about, Jordan Payne was a quarterback, Brandon Vessel was a quarterback, Zaire Rollins is another guy, who were all quarterbacks that we made the transition to receiver last year. So they had to learn the receiver position last year. Now, after being in it for a year, Now you know how to play receiver. Now it's about the next step. Understanding defenses, understanding coverages, understanding leverage, how to beat press, how to come back to the ball, all the little things that make talented receivers. And that's what we're challenging them on this year, as opposed to last year, just trying to teach them how to get in the receiver stance.
Yeah.
So having that retention is good for them. And then Casey is the guy that made the transition, and it's almost like he's been playing it since day one. I mean, just his physicality is an asset to us, playing that tight end position. He has very soft hands, very good ball skills, so he can be a weapon for us in the run game as well as the passing game. So we're very pleased with what we see out of Casey right now.
Everybody expects a lot of great things from the Braves, winning 9 games for the first time in a long time. A lot of people expect this team to push to go to Houston for the SWAC championship game. But, talking about it is one thing, doing it is another. And I'm sure these players hear it from their classmates and from people all over the place. How tough is it to block that out, knowing that the expectations are high and there's only one step left, to go to Houston and to represent in the championship game?
Well, anytime that you come close to a championship and fall short, I don't think there's a bigger motivator. I mean, you look at the San Antonio Spurs losing the championship to the Miami Heat the year before. That's all they had in their mind the entire season was get back and finish finish it. And the same thing for us. I mean, our whole sounding cry for this team is 1 point. We're 1 point last year away from having a chance to play for a championship. And where do we find that 1 point? Offensively, defensively, special teams wise, we have to find that 1 point. So whenever you go across campus or out in the community and people are patting you on the back saying how good you were last year, block it out and think about 1 point. I have to go back to work, find a way to make sure I'm not the one that costs us that 1 point, and make sure I'll be the one this year that gets us that 1 point to get to Houston and finish what we came to do.
What excites you about this year's team offensively?
Just, again, retention, having a lot of guys, hungry guys, guys that want to do what Arnold did last year and take this league by storm. I mean, Arnold was a well-known guy, but I think last year he surprised a lot of people as how he played, and so now it's challenging, or it's interesting to see who's going to be that guy. I talk to the offense all the time about who's going to be the star week to week. We don't know who the star is going to be in this offense, other than the offensive line. We say they're the stars every week, but whether it be John Gibbs 1 week or Jordan Payne the next week, Anthony Williams the next week, Diego Samba the next week, we don't know who that guy is. So the competition every day, them pushing each other, them trying to see, because everyone wants to be it. All 11 guys want to be that guy who's getting a name in the paper, who's getting Conference Player of the Year, who's being All-American and all of that. So that's the challenge to these guys. Push yourself to a level that you've never gone to before and make this season the most memorable one in our history.
That's a great problem to have. Sometimes too much, they say too much is not a good thing, but in this case, it's a great thing.
That's right. Competition, like I said, makes us all better. So as long as we have healthy competition, we feel good about our chances.
Coach, appreciate it.
Thank you.